I was just looking at your thing about MNLARS and about you're going to create a joint commission on technology. So I just think that what they really need is a permanent commission of software developers. And by that, I mean not bureaucrats or politicians, but people who actually know what they're doing.
Wants us to accept that technology.
A permanent thing. They can hire resources they need it. They have the power to go in and help the state figure this stuff out, and they're high enough profile so that they can really influence the legislature, who I suspect has next to no people who've ever done any sort of coding or software development.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple things with MNLARS. I had the benefit of being so it's the Minnesota License and Registration System. In case you've not read a newspaper in the last 2 years, it's so it has to do with with vehicle registration stuff. So I had the really the joy and the privilege of being on the Select Committee on Technology and Responsive Government last biennium, which was essentially a MNLARS committee, just so we could hear people tell us everything that was wrong with MNLARS. So, part of it is that it wasn't just software. It's that the hardware and the software was really outdated. And it's a great example of what happens when you kick the can down the road too far. And then it becomes almost impossible to get the can. So it's, if you don't update your computer as the updates become available, you reach a point at which you can't go back and have the update work. And so it's, at this point, it's clearly was a disaster. And what my focus really is, and the reason that we were on the House floor until almost midnight on Thursday, was because we were passing a bill off the House floor to move forward in addressing the issue and hopefully finally resolving the MNLARS crisis. And I think another piece of that folks might not be aware of is, so the deputy registrars, which are the people who are actually responsible, who are deputized by the state to do the registration services. Like, for instance, probably a lot of us have been to the Roseville License Center. They were the ones who were really bearing the financial ramifications of the system not working well. So, for instance, the Roseville License Center, because it's one of the license centers that typically has the highest volume, was out literally $250,000 over the course of this. And so one piece of the bill that we passed off the House floor on Thursday was to send money back to those people, whether, and deputy registrars are kind of interesting. Some of them are municipal owned, some of them are small business owners. And so it's kind of 50-50, the split there. So we have all these cities' budgets who are negatively impacted, and then these small businesses where people are literally having to sell out their retirement to keep the business afloat. And so part of the solution is also making those folks whole. And the last thing I will say on it is to remind folks that the MNLARS system relating to vehicle licensing is separate from the Real ID system. And they purchased a program that's been used in that transition in other states. So, as people are kind of anxious about the transition to Real ID, those are separate issues as far as the software and hardware is concerned.
So I'm carrying that bill she just referred to on the Senate floor and in committee, and I'm trying to get that through, understanding that there's two problems here. One, we've allowed people to spend their own money to pay for things that the state's responsible for, and now we need to go back and pay them back. And that's the responsible thing to do. The second part, though, is, and I don't know if my colleague would agree with me, but if there's ever been a situation where my GOP friends say that we throw money at a problem hoping it'll go away, this would be a great example of that. And I've watched us do that over and over again with possible solutions when the people, as you just correctly identified, didn't have a grasp of how it was actually going to be solved. And now we're in a mess where people feel invested, and we're not. It doesn't seem like there's a clear consensus on how that should be fixed. At the same time, we all recognize that we need some system to manage that, right? So I'm hopeful, and I think your statement about having some sort of committee on technology that manages that would be nice, because it might force my colleagues in the Senate to accept the technology is probably not going away.
Yeah, and that's right. An emphasis on technologists actually telling the legislature, this is going to work, this isn't going to work, and helping the state keep up, because a little bit of money spent now will save a lot of money later. You could look how
Well, I mean, we have such a fabulous track record with websites, so. Yeah, I agree. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
we do have a couple IT professionals now in the legislature, so I think that is really helpful. So I'm looking at the clock, and we've got about 10 minutes left. So if anybody who hasn't asked a question yet,
Ready to bite the bullet with Vinny.